Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and Phoenix Resale just proved me right. For those of you who follow the channel, you'll probably remember a few weeks ago where I basically made a video talking about Phoenix Resale's quote unquote business model. And in that video, I was basically encouraging viewers of his channel not to try and do what he does. I was basically telling people that you're better off going out and getting a job than trying to resell video games. Primarily because it will, at this stage of the game, it's not a business model that will truly allow you to sustain yourself. The 2020 era is gone, and now in 2025, it's just not going to work. A lot of people watch his channel, and I think they are, enamored by the idea of being able to just chase video games all week and build a business off of that. And what I was basically explaining in that video was that Phoenix Resale, I don't want to say that he doesn't have a business, but what he does is basically arbitrage. He's an Amazon arbitrage seller. And one of the key ingredients that I stressed in that video, the key ingredient that makes him successful, or anyone like him successful, is that he has been ungated on Amazon to sell video games. For those of you who don't know what ungating is when you basically get the permission from Amazon to sell video games, especially retro games, on their website. Amazon does not allow any and everyone to sell on their platform. They are extremely picky. They're extremely stringent on who they will allow to sell on their website. And before, I would say maybe 5-6 years ago, it was a lot easier to sell on Amazon's platform. It was easier to apply to get ungated. It was a lot easier because there was less competition. Over the years, a lot of people have discovered, what it means to start an Amazon business. A lot of people have discovered Amazon arbitrage, which of course, whenever there's an opportunity, a lot of people try to get in on the opportunity. But who gets the advantage in that case? Usually it's the first mover. I'm not saying that Phoenix was the first to start selling on Amazon, but he was the first to do it and publicize it at the level he did on YouTube. So now in 2025, if you're thinking, okay, I can just go ahead and start reselling video games on Amazon, you'll be sorely mistaken because one, you won't even get the permission to sell those games. So, and it's not going to work for you from a margins perspective. It's not going to work for you unless you can sell on Amazon. Trying to sell video games on eBay is not competitive. It's just not. Trying to do it on Mercari is not competitive. You will not have any type of competitive advantage from a pricing perspective to be able to compete with someone like Phoenix Resale, who can mark his games up, 30, 35, 40, 50% of what you're able to sell those games for on places like eBay and Mercari. And so in that video, I basically outlined why starting a reseller business doesn't make sense because of the dependence on Amazon and Amazon's platform. And I basically said in that video, if Amazon ever decided one day that they're not going to allow Phoenix Resale to sell retro games on their site, he's cooked. He's done. Like he wouldn't, his business is over because that honestly, I could say a lot of his revenue, like if you look at the entire Phoenix Resale empire, and I know he's shown his numbers on his channel before. I've never really watched them enough to really know the numbers, but if I just had a pie chart, I would say, I would have to say that at least 30 to 35% of his overall revenue comes from YouTube. And then maybe another 45% or so comes from, his, selling on Amazon. And then I would say the rest is probably a mix between things like Encore, eBay, and any other places that he can, generate revenue, right? But the point of the matter is that his business is heavily dependent on YouTube and Amazon, right? And mainly the Amazon thing, because his Amazon sales help to power the content that he creates on YouTube, right? So, and I said this, I wasn't saying this to downplay what he's doing. I said this so that it could shed some light on what his actual business is, because I think a lot of people, especially younger kids who watch his show and think they're going to become a reseller, they don't understand how he's actually making his money. Well, recently, I want to say the other day, he put out a video basically saying how he was going to open up a video game store. And I watched the video, but I had to laugh because the three reasons why he's opening up his video game store were the three reasons that I said that I mentioned in my video, where I was saying that I wouldn't recommend someone trying to resell video games as their full-time job. And that was that he felt that he's too dependent on YouTube, he's too dependent on Amazon, and he needs more marketing. And for these reasons, he's going to have to open up a video game store. Now, in my opinion, when Phoenix Resale cuts the ribbon and opens up his store for the first time, that will be the day that he actually has his own business, in my opinion, because that will be a standalone store that's completely dependent on him and his team's ability to drive traffic into the store and sell video games. Now, I think he's going about it the smart way in setting up a space to be able to continue his Amazon business. So I think he's going to continue to ride out his Amazon business through the store, which makes sense, right? I mean, you might as well utilize the space. If he can expand and increase his capacity of what he's currently doing on Amazon by moving those operations to his store, where he can probably have more employees and process more video games and just increase his overall capacity, that makes sense, right? But then he's also having this storefront where people can come into the store and, obviously buy games, and he's following the Retro Rick model. But in my opinion, I think this is a really good strategy, because at this point now he can actually say he has a business, not an arbitrage business, but he actually owns a storefront that he's going to be running with himself and his team. Now, I think this is good for him, and I'm happy for him, but this is going to open up a whole other can of worms, which he seems like a smart guy. I'm sure he's crunched the numbers. I'm sure he's done the math, but I think there's some hidden implications with opening up a storefront, especially considering the fact that he's built the majority of his reputation has been built on YouTube. A lot of people know him from YouTube and like his conventions and stuff. And it's going to be interesting to see how the general public reacts to his store, because reality and YouTube are two very different things, right? So, you can watch him announce this on YouTube and think, wow, this is going to be great. Everybody who loves him is going to go to his store. Well, yeah, he's probably going to get that, but then he's going to get visits from all the people who aren't on YouTube, all the people who don't leave nice, tingly, warm, fuzzy comments on his channel. He's going to get all of that too. And in my opinion, just watching his video, I highly doubt he's going to be the person there dealing with customer issues. He's probably, if he's smart, he will hire someone to deal with disgruntled customers. If you think you're going to go to Phoenix Resale's store and air out all your grievances to Phoenix Resale himself, that's highly unlikely to happen. What will more than likely happen is he will have a team of people there at the store who will be working at the store and who will handle those things for him. I don't think Phoenix Resale is going to handle his store the way like a Retro Rick does, where like a Retro Rick is like constantly I don't know if Retro Rick is constantly in the store, but it seems like he would constantly be in the store. I don't know if Phoenix Resale is going to take that approach, because I just generally don't think Phoenix Resale has that type of personality. When I watch him, I get the vibe of a person who's really an introvert, but who's forced to be an extrovert for the sake of content or for the sake of doing business. But from what I view of Phoenix Resale, I think if he had it his way, he would probably be off somewhere by himself while the business runs itself. I don't get the vibe that he's the type of person that likes being in the face of people. He might say it, but I just don't get that vibe. And it's no knock to him. Sometimes people are just like that. You're social when you need to be, but if you don't have to be, you'd rather just probably be alone, either with your wife or your kids or your family, whatever the case may be. So I think that is where that's going to go. Another thing that comes to my mind is I'm thinking that there's something going on with Amazon. I'm thinking that in the back of his mind, he sees the Amazon door closing on some level. I think he probably anticipates that there may actually come a day where Amazon says, you know what, you can't sell this stuff online anymore, not because necessarily of Amazon, but because of the risks that Amazon might face by allowing people to sell Sony branded products, Nintendo branded products, Microsoft branded products. And even though these products might be old retro games, they still bear the brand of these companies that are still actively doing a lot of business today. Is Sony selling PlayStation 2 games and PlayStation 1 games? No. But Sony is selling a lot of these games digitally on their marketplaces. The same thing with Amazon. And you have to think, I mean, sorry, not the same thing with Amazon, but with the same thing with like Nintendo and things like that. And you would have to think, if Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft are trying to drive people to their online stores to download these retro games, they're probably not going to want to have to compete with sellers like Phoenix Resale, who are selling these physical products on Amazon.com. And they're probably going to want to shut these avenues down to force people to have to download these games or go to their online platforms to access these games. And these companies like Nintendo, Sony, they have the power to reach out to an Amazon and say, hey, we don't want this anymore. We don't want people to be able to sell these games and compete with us as we're trying to sell the digital versions of these games on our website. And should something like that happen, it will be a wrap. Amazon will not hesitate to shut down any and every person who is selling retro games at the request of, these video game companies. And it doesn't even need to be, necessarily Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft. It could just be the publisher. It could be Capcom. It could be Konami. It could be Sega. It could be whoever that goes to Amazon and says, hey, we don't want these people selling our products because we're trying to force them to go to our online platforms to buy these games. So this is all very interesting to see him do this. I feel like it pretty much just validates a video that I made weeks, if not months ago, because I've told people this, that reselling, no matter what level you feel like you're reselling at, if you're doing it on Amazon, it's the Amazon dependent. Unless you are able to buy all these games from GameStop and yard sales and stuff and set up your own platform, your own online website, or you have your own distribution process for selling these games, unless you have that, you don't have a business. You're doing arbitrage. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The only danger with that is the sustainability, and you're really operating at the whims of another company, because if they decide to change their policy at the end of the year, you're toast. So I think this is a good move by Phoenix Resale to come up with a backup plan in the event Amazon does change their gating policies. And if they do decide to just shut all sellers of video games down that are not actual representatives of the companies for the games that they're selling, then it's going to put a lot of resellers out of business. And to be quite honest with you, this is something that I could very much see happening, especially as more and more of these companies expand their online service where you can download these retro games and play them. Like, for instance, Microsoft a week ago announced that they're going to be adding more retro games to Game Pass. Microsoft doesn't want to compete with someone on Amazon. They want people to go to Game Pass and download these retro games. And so I can see companies doing everything within their power to shut down the competition, because it's happened before. And if they really want to flex their authority, they will do it. They will reach out to Amazon and they will shut you down. So I think Phoenix Resale is doing a good job of buffering himself and his business against that, what almost feels like an inevitability. But I think, again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out now. I think Retro Rick did a really good job of getting ahead of this years in advance, because Retro Rick opened up his store while while gaming was still, retro games were still, they weren't at their peak, but they were still pretty high. And he's established himself in a very good way to where he now has a store. And not only does Retro Rick have a store, but now he's doing his own gaming convention. So I think from the perspective of establishing your own business, I feel like Retro Rick got way ahead of the curve with that, because not only does he have his store, but he's already on his way to, probably his second gaming convention. And he's still got his YouTube channels rocking and rolling. And he's just more established. I feel like he's established himself more as a business, whereas Phoenix Resale is now attempting to transition from reseller to business owner. And I know he's constantly referred to his reselling business as a business. I guess, yes, it is a business, but in my opinion, what he's doing now he's actually establishing a business. So these are just my thoughts. I thought this was very interesting. Listen, I'm not doing any of it. I'm not reselling. I'm a W-2 employee. I'm just a lowly employee. What do I know? But what say you? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.